John Lee invited us to take a look at some of his action from the 2025 North American Championships for the Ultimate 20. Here you can see they are mid-jibe here. John's driving, Tim Ponter there, the crew or trimmer, and then Scott Queen up forward. A couple of things to note here. Scott, travels around in the cockpit during the jibe, which allows not for much roll. Tim kind of gets the kite across as quickly as he can. However, it's not really a very clean jibe in the terms of the kite having to go inside out. The boat not having any roll kind of doesn't let it accelerate out of the jibe real good. You got to really place an emphasis on using your crew weight to help steer the boat. It's one thing to, you can see here the attitude of the boat's a little bit over the weather, so it's turning down naturally. That caused John to be too far away from the wind. You can see everything get real light. So instead, he crosses the boat and takes the tiller with him, as opposed to having their crew members do it, right? Sitting down low is usually not a good thing. It takes you out of the breeze from feeling it, and it just kind of gets you away from feeling the boat. So here you can notice they got too low again, decided it was a light spot, puts the bow up and just says, you know what, we just got to get out of here. So watch the deck level here. There's no roll on the boat. John sits up off the floor. Great job by Tim getting the kite across, and the clue never wrapped around the luff of the spinnaker, which was great. However, just no roll and no acceleration really. So again, here we are later in the leg. John's still sitting on the leeward side. Like I said, have that third crew member be the first person to move up forward. So another jibe. Again, the kite has to go around itself quite a bit there, so it's never really full until now. It's extremely late in the jibe. And John even noticed that that was a slow jibe on his part, turning the boat. So here we are later in the leg. That blue, white, and red sail coming up. That's actually us on Mighty Mouse 21. So here they jibe on top of us. Again, the kite has to go inside out, at least half of it. No roll. Everybody's sitting on the weather side. Too low, not loaded up. Everything goes wrong with that jibe. One thing I want you to notice here, the boat's on the horizon, right? So here we have the red and gray kite. That's Brad Boston coming across on port. They wave him by. No big deal. It's a little bit closer than you'd hope, but yeah, they give it to him. And John obviously is taking it pretty casually, it looks like. But later in the leg, I'll kind of show you something that John and the crew were able to have pretty good boat speed and catch a couple lucky breaks. So here we are. Obviously, they kept going. You can see now the boat's traveling a lot quicker. Obviously rolled into a nice puff over on this right-hand side. Then they go ahead and jibe. Again, the clue was just too far out at the beginning of the jibe, and so now it's completely on the wrong side of the left of the spinnaker. And so now it has to basically unroll itself all the way from scratch, a lot like a roller furling head sail would. Just really not good. The boat's already pointed in the right direction, but there's just no umph and no pull. But here you notice over John's back here on the left-hand side of the screen, there's that red and gray kite that just barely crossed him on port the last jibe. Well, John and his crew now, look at that. They're at least 5 or 6 boat lengths ahead now. So definitely ran into a nice shift and some nice pressure over on that right-hand side. Just to kind of be honest, here we are, blue, white, and red. That was us, right? We stayed on that left, but had pretty good boat speed. We jibed here coming into the leeward gate. So that mark on the right-hand side is actually the right-hand mark. We're obviously set up to jibe right there at the left-hand mark. Here, John's just kind of creeping low, kind of wondering, what do we do? Better go for that right-hand mark. But notice the purple kite there? That's Mark Asplund and crew. They were about that far ahead of him at the weather mark, too, when he first jibed at the beginning of the video. So we haven't really lost too much here. He's pretty even with everybody in terms of where they started the leg. So now they decide this left-hand mark with us on the inside is just going to be too much. Pushes the tiller over last minute, slams the boat over. They pull the jibe off, which is fine. Get moving again before the douse. However, this late setup and coming in pretty hot, it can cause some congestion around the leeward mark and a couple problems. So here you can see they're already going really fast, right? Going faster than they have the whole leg. So this takedown turns out to be a little bit late. Bow's already past the mark. Kite's not even close to in the boat yet. But Scott does a great job getting that kite back in. Corralled the foot and then corralled the head. really great job stuffing that thing, getting that cleanly in the boat. However, the Traveler was down, didn't help him. He's in dirty air, right? From Mark, you can see just there on his right-hand shoulder. So kind of caused down, well, drop the Traveler there, not great. That always unloads the boat into the tack, which is not what we want. We want the boat to spin up into the wind when we tack. So just one thing to keep in mind. We'll kind of look at it here going upwind some more. Now we're kind of playing to the point where we want to adjust the Traveler and the main sheet to get it right in our sweet spot, right? So one thing you can do is, have marks on your main sheet, because ultimately it's the tension that controls your headstay sag, right? Because it's your backstay, if we will. We don't have a backstay, so we have to use the main sheet to help control that, right? So here we go. Again, watch the attitude of the boat on the horizon. Tips over, the main must go out. And if you can see here, John he's already down all the way on the Traveler, so instead he decides to crack the main sheet. Well, look at the headstay. There goes out the main sheet, and the headstay just bobbed to leeward. So here we are again, further up in that leg. Traveler's still down, it's a little bit lighter. The boat has a nice angle of heel, right? But Tim's in the boat, cleaning up, doing everything, but the main sheet never came back in. The Traveler didn't come back up until just now, and watch, it's gonna come back. When it does, it's gonna go all the way from straight to the bottom, straight to the top. Again, no difference in main sheet tension. So that means the headstay's probably still sagged a little bit. So they have plenty of power, right? So one thing you just want to look at is the amount of headstay sag. So here we are later in the leg again. Notice the sun on the horizon, right? So it started out on the left side of the mast. Now it's on the right side of the jib. Tim comes in because it is getting lighter. Scott moves in, which is great. Main sheet just went out a little bit, which helps power the boat up, which is good. Again, the Traveler is kind of your main tool. You only want to adjust the main sheet if you have to. So here again, the sun's way to the right, which is great if you're going up the leg on port. However, at some point, you're going to have to get back across. There is more left in this race. So you can see here, all of a sudden, a little bit of a light spot and a lot of a righty. The sun just went 10 degrees to the left of the boat. So the main Traveler comes up thinking, okay, I'm going to control my heel with it. So here they are later in the leg. You can see now the sun is in front of the mast, right, on the left-hand side of the boat. It was on the right-hand side of the jib there for a while. So they're getting headed, obviously. So it's probably a pretty good time to think about tacking. Obviously, a nice puff comes in, flatten the boat, first thing, right? Good job. Usually what you can do there is just drop the Traveler 4 or 6 inches. Again, the Traveler got dropped a little bit too soon there, unloaded the boat into the tack, which then means the rudder has to take over. Tim does a good job of backing the jib to try to get the bow around, which I love. Just let the jib basically hit the mast, and that helps push the bow through the eye of the wind and then go straight to the new sheet and sheet in. I love it if the sails don't actually flog in the middle of a tack. They just simply go from one tack to another. So again there, Traveler got released, didn't help load the boat into the tack, and then it just kind of settled a little bit to leeward out of the tack. So one thing to notice here, watch the horizon. So everything looks good. Obviously you can see here on the land, they've actually gotten lifted quite a bit more because now the sun is almost appearing on the right-hand side of the screen. You can see that little bit of a spit of a land on the right-hand side of John there. So we're pretty consistent here. We have more pressure, obviously. Everybody's sitting up, hiking hard. Good. This is the time when you want everything at max trim, right? You want the headstay as straight as you can. You want the mainsail as flat as you can. And just enough to keep you powered up to get through the conditions that you're in. Keeping the boat level here. Using that Traveler, right? To help keep the boat flat. Again, getting lifted here, Traveler comes up, we're taking it all we can. Just remember that if the Traveler comes up and the mainsail gets in, that wants to head the boat up. If you want to turn away from the wind, you got to drop the Traveler or ease the main sheet out. You want to get the main more unloaded for the boat to steer away from the wind. They are on the right side of a few boats here, but you'll notice here after they tack that there was actually quite a few boats further to the right of them. So I'm going to speed this up here. You can see now the sun is well to the left side of the boat. So that means we're in a big right phase going over here. He was on the left side of these few boats. Obviously, probably didn't help him in the final standings of this race, but at least they have good pressure and they're getting closer to the mark. Thanks for letting us ride along, John. I hope this helps.